Great, thank you. Good conversation. So, as Kelly mentioned, I'm the executive director of the Cleveland Water Alliance, a water innovation and technology cluster based in Cleveland, but really serving the entirety of the Lake Erie um, basin. And so there we go. And if you notice in the top right corner, and Elena mentioned this a little bit, we're built on a concept from an economic development term known as a cluster. And a cluster really is about, one, what sort of natural assets do you have in your local economy and how do you build those up? And it generally consists of a triple helix model of industry, research, and governmental agencies. So, for us in Cleveland, it starts with industry. And, on your screen there are just a few of our partners deeply into water, but all sorts of different ways that they're into water. So it's not just about, a lot of the conversation today, which is about monitoring and smart sensing. But, for us, it's all the way through to companies like Moen and Connecticut and Odie, which are working on smart homes and how water impacts that, all the way through to a company like Eaton that is working on Industrial 4.0 and smart systems, and in particular around energy and water, et cetera. So we have over 300 companies just in Northeast Ohio that are within the blue economy or water economy space. So we start by building on that. Then comes our research partners, and this is a bit of our research partners, but I think what you'll notice here is, while Cleveland's in our name, it's not just our only playground, our only pool, as we like to use our water metaphors. But you'll see quite a few Research One institutions there, from Case Western, Ohio State, University of Michigan, all the way through to University of Windsor across border, and University at Buffalo in New York, as well as all throughout Ohio. So it really brings a broad collection into our innovation ecosystem. And then, of course, our governmental and NGO partners make up that third leg of the triple helix model. And that's a broad conversation. For us, it always starts with our utilities. And for us, that's not only our local utilities like Cleveland Water, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer, but we're working a bit now with the Great Lakes Water Authority in Detroit, with Toledo, with Sandusky, with Buffalo System, et cetera. But then you also see some other both governmental and quasi-governmental agencies on there, like the port and the Port of Cleveland. Our port in Cleveland is quite an economic development driver, dealing with a lot of the aggregate leading into our steel mills, but it also runs a line between here and Northern Europe for goods and products. At the federal level, of course, organizations and federal departments like NOAA, NASA, we have a growing relationship with the Department of Commerce and Commercial Services, and then all the way through to programs like Sigler. And then at the state level, the H2 Ohio program and our partners at the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Office of Coastal Management, OEPA, and even Jobs Ohio. So when we talk, and you've heard others earlier talk about that innovation ecosystem, it's really about how do you get this entire system rowing the same way in the same direction. How do you get them to drive innovation and drive technology? And in particular, and I think somebody asked this question earlier about, how does this impact humans? So we're talking a lot about tech and all of that. And on one hand, you can say, well, it's good to know there's not E. coli in the water, and that's something we want to warn people out. And of course, we're seeing less and less of it. CSOs and that work around CSOs continues to increase. Certainly in Cleveland, we'll be done with our work by 2032. But it brings up this great point on why we do what we're doing, and I think this slide and that first point really says it well. This is a significant job creator. When I came in, 5+ years ago to lead this organization, never had a full-time executive director. I built this on this hypothesis that you can commit to having cleaner water, and that commitment will also lead to growing and increasing gross regional product. And in our case, that has actually been proven to be more than a theory, and has actually turned out to be true. So right now, just in Cuyahoga County, which is the county that Cleveland's based in, we're adding over 300 net new blue economy jobs annually. And we've had two different reports validate this. The first was funded through the U.S. Economic Development Administration and carried out by the Ohio Aerospace Institute. And the second was just completed by McKinsey and Company as part of a pro bono project they're doing here in Cleveland. What's really exciting to us is these jobs tend to be more inclusive, and we've made that a priority. Our Water Equity Task Force, in partnership with the U.S. Water Alliance, has just been a great partner for continuing and increasing the needs of that conversation and impact. But also, this is leading to good paying jobs. What these reports found out is, if you want a job, you want it to pay well, get into water. The jobs that we're creating are paying between 65K to 108K, and that ranges in anything from somebody with a certificate and associate degree at our local community colleges up to PhDs. And we're also seeing now a significant increase in R&D. We hear a lot of attention, both nationally and regionally, about things like biohealth, aerospace, advanced energy, and additive manufacturing. This work that this collective is taking on actually is adding more jobs than all of those in some cases, and in case of parts of Ohio combined. So this is why we're doing this is leading to cleaner water, more smart and connected innovation, growth for our cluster companies, but jobs ultimately, and good jobs, and jobs that blur that in a good way, that line between clean tech, blue tech, and even manufacturing in our case. So I just thought very quickly, and I know we're running short on time, a sampling of some of our programs, just to give you a little taste of how we've approached the Smart Lake work and Smart Lake Erie, which really, kind of kicked off this collaborative, in general. So obviously we're here today talking about Smart Lake Erie, and I'll get more into that here in a moment. But really this all comes back through programs like Erie Hack, our open water innovation programs. You'll see pictures on the right of our most recently concluded version from this last summer, where that picture on the right just shows 75K that we awarded to 3 new technologies. And what's really crucial here is not just awarding dollars to these companies, but to continue to accelerate their innovations, their technologies, get them off the ground, get them running, and potentially find them partners within our cluster network to take on their innovation, or to find them equity investment to actually grow it internally. So that's just been a dynamite program. The Great Lakes Biomimicry, we sponsor in partnership with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Office of Coastal Management, and in one case Biohabitats, 2 biomimic PhD fellows through the University of Akron. One is just finishing up her work on coastal resiliency, and then the second one is just midway through her PhD, but it's just amazing work around materials and coastal resiliency. A very timely subject, just given high water marks on all the Great Lakes and what that's doing to eroding our coast, and looking at new, safer materials to help, keeps, in our case in Ohio, in some cases, massive erosion of land that's encroaching upon actual structures. You'll see some programs here, such as H2 Ohio, which is Governor DeWine's just incredible program around, almost $90 million a year going to clean water innovation, clean water technology. If anybody wants to know more about that, let me know, but we're certainly helping them in a variety of ways, including a national look and international look at new phosphorus-based mitigation, innovation, and technologies. The Internet of H2O, I'll get into in a minute. The Great Lakes One Water Partnership is a $800,000 smart citizen science. And you'll notice this theme that a lot of our work actually supports not only Smart Lake Erie, but the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. We're bringing more data to bear, which is crucial in all of this. And it's not just these new, smart, inexpensive IoT-based systems. We love them. We're deploying them like crazy. But it's also smartening up other approaches, such as smart citizen science. In this case, we're using an innovation developed out of one of our open innovation competitions for a handheld spectrometer. It costs $20 to 3D print, and it competes with a $1,300 Hawk nitrogen and phosphorus sensor. So, a lot of good stuff there. I'm not even going to begin to getting into everything that we're doing, but I just want to give you a little flavor when we talk about this innovation ecosystem. It's really wide, it's really varied. It's not going to be just smart and connected systems on the open water. It's going to be smart pipes. It's going to be, a variety of different topics, both with muni utility, all the way through to the home, all the way through to the open waters. So Smart Lake Erie, and I always love this shot showing our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Great Lakes Science Center. We came about this, four plus years ago from an honest place, and that is we have this regional challenge. Regional challenge is harmful algal blooms. We know that it's going to be billions of dollars of impact. One needs to only look at Toledo in 2014 being shut down for 2.5 days because of harmful algal blooms. Harmful algal blooms have a very nasty toxin in them called microcystin. And if you drink that, you will die. So not a good thing. Billions of dollars of impact. Luckily, our governor and our state, the state of Michigan and the province of Ontario, which I just love working with Canada on our work, came up with this goal to reduce nutrient, the leading cause of harmful algal blooms, by 40% in 2025. However, what we noticed here is insufficient data. We just didn't have all that much data to say, are we making progress? God, who knows? We'll go out and we'll do these occasional grab samples. GLOS has been really kind to fund, a few of our partners in getting some sensors, such as Cleveland Water, to start taking a look at nutrients. But really, we didn't have a great way of measuring progress. We didn't have a great way of measuring efficiency. And God forbid we have this conversation about ROI, or return on investment. So this idea of like, wow, with data we can actually have a better idea of where we should spend our dollars, where it's having the most adverse impact on humans, so we can go there first where we know we're going to have solid impact. So really, this conversation is where quite a few of us came together and said, all right, we need to embrace technology, embrace this new kind of, whether some people call it internet 4.0 or other things. So with that, everybody's like, one thing Kelly asked me is, to talk about our perspective on building Smart Lake Erie, because a lot of our work's been in a great way being utilized by others. What works for us doesn't always work for everybody, but this is just our approach. For us, this opportunity is around Smart Lake. And we call this a new breed of smart and connected infrastructure. And I think that's really key, and it's going to be really important as we talk about the pandemic recovery and about infrastructure. This has to be part of the conversation. And through this, we can also get in and cross those political boundaries. It's regional management. What happens upstream impacts downstream. What happens in Detroit impacts us in Cleveland and impacts those in Toronto. So, it's all one system. As we always say, a watershed knows no political boundaries. So we started looking and asking these questions about, what could these opportunities look like? And this was early days, but, hey, could we deliver predictive warnings? And Kelly's been leading that, GLOS has been leading that, and it's brought us in with a harmful algal bloom early warning system. I'm really fascinated actually right now with, we're having conversations on the wastewater side about, we think we can actually predict COVID-19 outbreaks through an early warning system developed in our wastewater systems. That's the sort of thinking, the innovation and technology that we want to push forward on. This is both a rural and urban. This is not just nutrients in the rural area. This is also, and Cleveland's, infamous for this, legacy contaminants, PCBs, E. coli. We want to get into all of that. And then, of course, we see huge opportunities around edge of field, and control nutrient runoff and deliver ROIs. How can we be ag's best friend as opposed to yelling and screaming at them? We think it's very, very important. So our path to a smart lake, building momentum. So the first thing is, we started launching these open innovation challenges. We took a team from NASA through our NASA Glenn Research Center around the entirety of Great Lakes. GLOS was part of that, and we started bringing both those who we knew in the water space with those in the technology space. And I always use this story because it's so true. The very first one of these we did was in Toledo. And it's not, Toledo's a good sized city, but not a huge city. And we had people in a room and started having this conversation. I realized, wow, these people have never met each other. So the people developing new technology and their incubator and their entrepreneurial kind of ecosystem had never once talked to their watershed people, to their water utility people. So it's like, oh, wow, huge opportunity to get people thinking and working together. And of course, these open innovations lead to some really cool solutions and technologies. So this led to what Kelly mentioned earlier, the Internet of H2O. We sometimes do these very specific innovation and open innovation challenges. And this is where we said, all right, there's something here around smart and connected systems. This was 3+ years ago. And so we did a partnership with Digital C here in Cleveland, US Ignite, and the National Science Foundation to put another innovation competition together, but in the Sandusky Bay, specifically around nutrient monitoring. Not only monitoring, but sensing the nutrients, trying different ways of working with different telemetry systems for getting that data off of these devices, looking at different ways to analyze these data, kind of push Gloss's system a little bit, make it a little bit more muscular, which they met that challenge, and actually deliver a set of tools that would be of value to our partners in Sandusky, be it ODNR, be it the city of Sandusky, another one of our partners. So as we put that together and we had these 5 solutions that were actually deployed in the Sandusky Bay, we said, let's bring together some thought leaders around this idea of smart and connected systems and Smart Lake Erie. And that's, kind of was the aha eureka moment for us, where people came together and said, there's a there there, and we must do this collaboratively. So, to that, we now entered this phase for us of implementation. So we have ongoing regular stakeholder engagement. We are leveraging GLOS platform, the GLOS Have Early Warning system. We leverage anything that's available, basically. We'll take it. We've been able to leverage, as I mentioned, the Smart Citizen Science Grant. That's up to about $810,000. Now we've been able to get a lot of great industry attracted to this and putting money into it. AT&T, YSI, Xylem, Lemnotech, IOSite, who I know is on the call, Cisco, Valor Water, et cetera. And we tried all sorts of different fun telemetry sensors. And we've now started to develop this Smart Lake Erie joint venture with some of our corporate partners. And I think that's really key here. It's fine to talk about this stuff within a bubble, but if you're not engaging industry and getting and leveraging them to bring in their assets, ultimately, we have to figure out how this is going to live financially and start developing those financial models. So that's something we've really spent a lot of time and helping, not only our partners, but, the whole entire GLOS system on. And then, through this, we've been able to start to grow R&D. We have NSF submissions in right now on, Smart Lake Erie and a Smart Lake Planning Grant. We've been able to leverage other dollars, which I'll get into a second, but it's really about this pathway from a small little innovation competition that's led to something much broader and bigger. As we gotten broader and bigger and leveraged other work going on, and again, I'm gonna reference the harmful algal bloom early warning system and the work through Ohio State University and Ohio Sea Grant has really allowed us to actually take this a step further and start talking more to ports, to tourism boards, water-enabled industries, impacted cities, et cetera. The whole point here is we're all part of this and we all need to help fund it, and we all need to figure out what is the value, what is the equation for these. Would somebody in Sandusky like Cedar Fair have value in paying and supporting this? And the short answer is, yeah, they would. This actually impacts their bottom line as the world's roller coaster capital, which has a lot of water assets, et cetera. So I love this slide because this was taken, and Kelly, you're right there next to David, but for some reason my thing cut it off, so don't be mad at me. But the work at the Internet of H2O in Sandusky a few years ago, this is just a sampling of the group we put together. There's Case Western, there's the head of NASA's economic development, the head of the utility department in Sandusky, there's Jess and Chris from YSI and Xylem, Dave Rankin from the Great Lakes Protection Fund. And on the right is, we actually had them drawing a lot of what would a smart lake look like. And we had everybody in these working groups, and everybody was engaged. It was great. It was a lot of fun. But we took that, which was a risk for us, and saying, we're going to bring people together and ask them this question and say, what does it look like if we actually create some sort of solutions architecture? Now, GLOS has taken a lot of this, and we're happy for that, but this was the actual piece that went into our NSF submission. So you can go from people drawing on a map of the lake into actual technology and innovation and how it works and where the values are. So, with that, just some examples of what we have on the ground today and how this has been growing since that meeting 3 years ago. So, the first is, here's one of our favorite buoys. This one's out by Cleveland's water intake system. And this photo comes courtesy of Cleveland Water. It just shows they're using these satellites, they're using buoys, they're using sondes, all sorts of different instruments in order to get data near real time that allows them to understand what's coming at them, that allows them to better operate their utility. Here's just one example of one of the parameter of sensors that would be in one of those buoys. In this case, we're looking at pH, temperature, conductivity, chlorophyll, DO, et cetera. These can be inputted with different sensors into them. Blue and green algae, obviously a big one, but I want people to understand that there's a lot of equipment inside these. It's just not fun to look at and fun to boat around, but oh, and I should mention also that you can text these buoys and they will text you back all of this real-time parameter information. So go to the GLOSS site and pick a buoy and figure out if that one has the text capabilities. It's a lot of fun. We're now starting to look at what we need that's next. In this case, we're always thinking, what if? So, contaminants from spills, manganese is a huge deal for us in Cleveland, as well as other things. So, starting to think through what do we need in terms of technology innovation, what's next in the pipeline. So we're real excited about a new deployment. And this is a smart sensing pilot in partnership with Ohio Department of Natural Resources and the Old Woman Creek estuary. We really like this one because somebody, I think, had a question about this earlier, which is, since this is a federal kind of designated area, it has a lot of really deeply expensive monitoring equipment in it. But what we're bringing in partnership with one of our cluster organizations, in this case, Limnotech, is a really cost-effective smart sensor network. In this case, it's going to concentrate initially on nutrients, on phosphorus and nitrogen. But this is going to start to give us an indicator of, one, will this next generation equipment, which is a lot less expensive, get us near the same level of input as the equipment that's 10 times, in some cases more than 10 times as expensive. And our short answer is we think it's going to be yes, but ask me in 90 days. Assuming we can get the restrictions in getting out there in terms of the pandemic and start deploying. But this is going to be a pretty fun project. On the left of your screen is a technology that was part of the Internet H2O. This is a new lab through Green Eyes. So we in my world often talk about wet labs in a can. In some cases, some of the things that we're looking at still require wet chemistry, and it's very expensive to do. In this case, this is a solution that's about 5% of the cost of the current NOAA-supported wet labs in a can. That's, again, looking at nitrogen, phosphorus. So we're going to be deploying a lot of fun new technology, a lot of new innovation with a lot of lower cost, low-tech innovation, but with a lot of AI and analytics behind us to say, can we develop the protocols? In our case, what we care about is for the state of Ohio to know this $90 million a year that they're spending for H2 Ohio. Are we giving them the information so they can make the best decisions as possible? And when they're not, get them that information so they can, all the way through to developing early warning systems for other areas. So, given that, that's just, a little bit into our world of how we've started developing the Smart Lake Erie and the Smart Lake concept. I always love this photo, again, courtesy of Cleveland Water. We have developed a series called the Lonely Buoy series, and if you go to Twitter, you also find a couple of the buoys have their own Twitter account. I believe 2 Yellow buoys is one of the big ones. So anyway, have fun with these. But look, I'm happy to answer any and all questions. This is something that we need to get broader investment on. I think we're proving the value of it. We have to support our partners who are a conduit for that funding, like the Great Lakes Observing System. It's going to be crucial. It's going to be key. I think somebody mentioned a question earlier, which we deeply care about, and that is, standards. We're certainly working with NIST. We've been working with the NIST, supercluster program for about 5 years. That we need to have standards. I love what GLOSS is pushing with a couple of our sensor partners about how we can actually embed certain standards into the chips before they even ship, just making the whole process easier. So with that, I know we're short on time. Kelly, I'm going to toss it back to you and just say thank you very much. This is fantastic, and we hope this continues to build in a way that you and I probably thought over a cocktail 3 years ago.
Yeah, no kidding. Brian.